بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى أهله وصحبه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. You guys, we're ready to start our session of Sunnah Fix. Today we have another outstanding young person joining us. This is none other than Sister Sana Shakir. Those of you who don't know, Sister Sana is actually the Sisters Coordinator and an outreach coordinator as well for UWM MSA. I did my homework, Sister Sana, mashallah. And she's also someone who was the MVP for our Core Academy's last course because of her outstanding participation, thoughtful comments. She achieved one of the highest scores in the class. And
because you make the engagement very easy, Brother Ameer.
Barakallah feek. Big dua, I can sustain it. And then finally, hope you don't mind me saying this, she's also part of the leadership team for our hangouts that we do every Sunday. They are the unsung heroes. I just come and yap. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless the efforts. Thank you for everything that you do. You know, I gotta say, Milwaukee has such incredible young talent. Like BTS got nothing on us, man. Like, mashallah, it's amazing. And we're through Sunnah Fix, we're gonna feature as many of our young people as possible, inshallah. That's the goal. So taqabbalallahu minna wa mink. So today, inshallah, we're starting Hadith 215. And the topic for the Hadith today is reciprocating kindness. This Hadith was brought to us by Jabir ibn Abdullah radiallahu an. And we were studying his life in the last two sessions. And if y'all remember, he passed away in the year 78 Hijri. Now, my teachers like drilled in my head the death dates because in the science of Hadith, it's kind of important to know when someone passed away. Because if someone claims to narrate from that person and they were like a toddler when that person passed away, there's no way you got hadith from that person. And that creates a disconnect in the record of transmission. And that's important to weed out and detect if you are a scholar of hadith. So 78 Hijri is when Jabir radiallahu anh passed away. He's one of the last living companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Little trivia for you guys, totally a side point. The last companion on record to pass away is someone by the name of Abu Amir. He passed away 110 Hijri, which is exactly 100 years after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Just something for Islamic trivia that might come in handy for you. So you guys, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in this hadith tells us, this is the first part of the hadith, Man suni'a ilayhi ma'rufun falyukafi'hu. Whoever has been done a favor to or shown some kindness to, let them reciprocate it. And if that person is unable to reciprocate it for whatever reason, then let him at least wholeheartedly and openly appreciate it. That's the hadith. That's the first part of the hadith. You guys, what are we learning here? The Prophet ﷺ is saying, if someone does an act of kindness towards you, find a way to make it up. Which means we as Muslims are not freeloaders. We're not entitled people who are always at the receiving end of the favor. Like part of the dignity of the believer, Sister Sana, and I strongly feel about this. I feel strongly about this, that part of the dignity of the believer is that you find a way to make up and get back to the people who have done good things to you. And I think this is something so important, that we're not just a taker, we're a giver. You're not just a leecher. And you find a way to the best of your ability to respond in kind. And that's why Aisha radiallahu anha says in a hadith in Bukhari that the Prophet ﷺ would accept gifts. Kana yaqbalu al-hadiya. But then she goes on to say that he would accept the gifts, but whenever possible, he would make it up to that person. Why? Because, so beautiful, the only one he wanted to have a hand of favor upon him was Allah and not the creation. So beautiful.
It's so profound, because it's like we have a duty on ourselves to be kind to other people. Like, we're not just put on this earth just to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and like go about just being like by ourselves. Like, our creation is to build communities and to interact with each other kindly. And that's just, it's subhanAllah, it's a blessing from Allah that is so highly emphasized in our deen.
SubhanAllah. Absolutely. And those of you, if you have your comments, please share. Sister Sana, if you see anything that you want to highlight, please feel free. And you guys, we've published our first set of comments, alhamdulillah, and we're going to do that every weekend, and that's our goal. So the Prophet ﷺ, whenever someone did a favor to him, he found a way to return the favor. Yet it's interesting that in our day and age, we know a lot of individuals, and millennials are notorious for this. Like, I personally know someone who's almost 30 years old, and his dad is still paying his credit card bills, still making his car payment, still covering the cell phone bill. And this person still can't hold down a job, still can't commit to a relationship, still has no direction. And you're trying to figure out, like, what's going on? Like, it has to be a two-way street. Now, one thing that this is a disclaimer I like to give whenever I talk about reciprocating kindness. The Prophet ﷺ is telling the recipient that, yeah, find a way to make it up, repay the favor, that's great. But this is an important disclaimer. This should not give the message to the giver, to the one doing the favor, that they now consciously or unconsciously start developing expectations. That's important. And it's tough to do because, look, human nature being what it is, when we give, somewhere down there, we start expecting little some. It's kind of like if you took someone out to eat and you picked up the tab. Next time you take the same person out to eat, your hand to the wallet is going to be a little slower. It's just who we are. But we have to make sure it doesn't become toxic to a point that this is where you hear the stories of a donor to the masjid is threatening to pull the funding off because the masjid won't follow their madhab. That's something that we have to be careful of. So, and I don't know, in our Desi culture, and Sister Sunnah, feel free to share your experience, and those of you in the audience as well. In our Desi culture, it gets really, really crazy. I'll tell you, like, people in our culture, when they get married, first of all, they will write on the wedding cards, no boxed gifts. You know what that means?
They're just too big. You're gonna need a whole pickup truck to get them home.
No box. Yeah, exactly. That, and also what they're telling you is, I don't need your toaster, cash only. So that's like in a very subtle way in the subtext that's being communicated. Now what happens when the person gets married, the family of the bride or the groom, whoever held the ceremony, after the ceremony is over, they're going to sit down and painstakingly write who gave and how much they gave. And they're going to compile this massive roster of everyone who gave and whatever amount they gave. And then the question is, why are they compiling this roster? You know why, right?
Yeah. Now they have to repay them, essentially.
Specifically, if any of them ever gets married or their children, you gotta match the amount. And if you don't, you're gossip material. And it's really looked down upon. See, now those expectations are now becoming toxic. That's where Hadith beautifully goes on to say, the Prophet ﷺ, as I shared earlier, the Prophet ﷺ says, if you are not able to reciprocate, then at least open-heartedly appreciate them, because materiality is not the only way you reciprocate something. You may not have the financial capacity, so at least send a thank you note. Tell them how much that meant to you. Be happy, be sappy. And one of the best ways the Prophet ﷺ taught us to repay the favor, Hadith comes in Abu Dawud where he says, فَدُعُوا لَهُ حَتَّى تَرَوْا أَنَّكُمْ قَدْ كَافَاتُمُ. At the very least, I should say, and one of the best things as well at the same time, make dua for them. And constantly make dua for them until you feel you've somewhat gotten even, if not materially, spiritually.
That's so
really
beautiful.
important.
That reminds me of the hangout that we just did with the empathy, and knowing that somebody's going through something and they chose to give you their time or their money is it's really beautiful to then repay them in dua, because sometimes we like belittle dua in a way where it's like, oh, I did the studying but the exam's tomorrow and I guess I'll just make dua. Like, it really should be something that we give high esteem to, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's blessing is really important.
It's incredible. And Sister Salah, building on what you just said, there are a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ says, when you make dua for your brother or sister, the angels say Ameen, and then they say to you the same. So that selfless act is still selfish, because you are also the recipient of that favor. It's amazing. One of our scholars used to say, whenever I have trouble with my children on a certain issue, I try to find other children or a cause of other children, and I try to donate to that cause. And he says that sometimes I find my own tarbiyah efforts getting a boost because
Mm-hmm.
I worried about somebody else in the process. So make dua for them. Keep them in your mind. And that's why we see in the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ that when companions of the Prophet, ﷺ, the Muhajirun, the Makkans, when they moved to Medina, Ansar opened their hearts, their homes, their wallets, everything for them.
Mm-hmm.
And they were so gracious that these Makkans, these refugees, Muhajirun, go to the Prophet ﷺ, they say, Ya Rasulullah, we're like embarrassed at this point. Like we've never seen a people so gracious in giving despite having little, like we see from the Ansar. They just continue to give. And Ya Rasulullah, we fear that they're taking away all the reward. So this is where the Prophet told them, no, not yet, not so fast. So long as you make dua for them and sincerely appreciate them, you have a chance. So
Beautiful.
that's what it comes down to, subhanAllah. Any comments or thoughts that are coming in?
I saw one earlier that was talking about dawah. I don't remember. Let me see who said it. It was Abdul Hamid, I think.
Mm,
About how our essentially what I took it to mean is like paying the favor back to somebody, and just doing little acts like that is really important to our dawah and like building like trust and relationships with people. And I think we forget that like dawah is a big part of our deen sometimes, and just a simple smile or like a thank
mm,
can go a long way, because you never know what someone's going through.
subhanAllah. They say action is louder than 1,000 words. I know this is not to beat the dead horse. I've said this so many times, but best dawah for Islam or against Islam is a character of the believer.
Mm-hmm.
It's so true, and this is why we're focusing on manners here, because
Mm-hmm.
that's how you do it. Now, the Prophet ﷺ goes on in this hadith to say that so far, if you connect it from the beginning, the Prophet ﷺ has said so far, whoever has been done a favor to, let him find a way to reciprocate it. And if you cannot reciprocate it, at least not materially, then at least openly appreciate it. Why? Because appreciation is gratitude, and silence at that moment is ungratefulness. Oh my God. This, especially in our old school culture, this needs to be understood. The Prophet is saying, like, if you can't pay back and you can't say a word of thanks, like, how hard is it to give a compliment?
Mm-hmm.
It's ajib. Like, the Prophet is straight up calling it out as ingratitude. And we know the famous hadith of Abu Hurairah that many of us have heard in khutbahs and other places. Man lam yashkuri nas, lam yashkurillah. Whoever is not thankful to people is not thankful to Allah, because you see the seen favors people do to you. If you can't appreciate that, how will you appreciate the unseen favors of Allah?
That's a chills moment. Like it's crazy how like it's so prevalent in our culture, where people just, especially like people who are authority figures over someone else, they feel like it demeans them to like say thank you, and
Wow.
like blows my mind. Like it's just a simple form of gratitude.
Isn't there a level of eagerness to not being able to give a compliment? It's like, I'm asking the audience as well, why is it so difficult for some people to give compliments? And again, I'm a Desi, so I can say whatever I want about my people and not be called out for it. But Desi uncles, and I love my uncles, they're notorious for this. They're so stingy with their compliments. Like, I think their brain like shuts down, and I think it's actually physically painful to give a compliment. Um, it's and sometimes I'm like, look, fine. If it's hard to give a compliment through words, give it
Mm-hmm.
through actions. Take her
Right.
out, take her out on a Groupon date. Easy on your pocket.
Right.
Give a good tip. Like, it doesn't always have to be verbal if it's hard for you, but it's difficult. It's very difficult. Um, by the way, a small tip on giving a good compliment is a lot of times people, when they give compliments, they're very generic and bland. They're like, oh, nice job, good work. This is the stuff we hear. A key to giving a good compliment is two things. Number one, specificity. Be specific about what you're praising, a specific behavior, identify that. And then if you want to take it to the next level, add a why in there. So this would be like, the presentation was awesome. So you identified the presentation, and then now you go to the next level by saying, I was glued to my seat the whole time. It was so easy to follow. Add a little reason as to why it was so meaningful to you. That really, really helps.
Yeah, I also, especially with girls, we tend to like compliment each other on like, oh my god, I love your like hijab or your shoes or whatever. And like I've always heard to try to stay away from appearances and to more compliment like style or something like that, or just go straight for the personality because that's always sticks with people a lot more.
Nice, nice. And with guys, sometimes we get awkward around each other when you give them a compliment straight up. So I always tell, if you're gonna get somebody's gonna get awkward with compliments, then compliment the action,
Mm-hmm.
identify the behavior, and maybe that'll be a easy way to compliment. But is getting specific is important. It happens to me all the time. Like I'll give a khutbah and I'll come down, and one of the uncles, and I love my uncles, they'll be like, "Beta, nice speech, nice speech." I'm like, I didn't know I just did a speech competition, like some sort of a performance. But this is something we can all improve upon
Mm-hmm.
and get better at. SubhanAllah, you never know. One word, one sentence, one phrase can really change someone. And I'll end on this, at least my part of the presentation, and we'll get some comments from you and others. Ustad Noman, the founder of Baina Institute, he is a programmer by trade, but he became an Arabic teacher, and we know who he became. If you hear his story, he his career launched because he was on the side he was studying Arabic as he's doing his programming and his full day job. And once after the Isha prayer, he was breaking down an Arabic concept. And after he was done doing that presentation, that person came up to him and he said, "That presentation," this is what he said, and I'm going to try to remember the exact wording. This brother told a young professional, he told Ustad Norman, "That was amazing. I feel like you're a natural teacher." Ustad
That's
Norman says, "I've gotten a lot of compliments for my teaching, but none stick like that one did."
mm,
And that changed the trajectory of his career. SubhanAllah. I mean, how much sadaqah jari is that person getting? Like, you never know. You can make someone feel like $1 million.
mm-hmm.
Just be generous, if not with your pocket, then with your mouth. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us tawfiq. Yes.
Oh, I wasn't wasn't planning on saying much more. Oh, but I do like Musarat's comment.
Yes.
She said, "If you do good, but they will not appreciate you, even though they know you're doing great." And I feel like that happens a lot, especially with like the youth, where they'll do something, they'll put a lot of effort into it, and we shouldn't expect praise, but sometimes when you're doing something new that like takes a lot of work, it's important to like have a little bit of feedback, and that just kind of
Yes.
always people. So I think I like what you said about being generous with just giving compliments because it doesn't take anything
Yes.
out of the day, and it might make someone else's day a lot better.
Yeah, and I don't know if you're on the TikTok scene. I'm not, but sometimes you dabble, and there's so many memes, so many memes. If I see another one of these, I'm thinking I'm gonna puke. Um, the kid's gonna come home with a 95%, and the Desi dad is like, "What happened to the remaining 5%?" It's constant theme. Or the shahata. This is the legit feedback. It's, at least in the Arab families, this is how feedback works. You know. Um, Rafi was saying, gratitude reminds us that we get everything from Allah and we shouldn't take things for granted. Also, gratitude is essential for our own well-being and the well-being of others. That's beautiful. Sheikh Omar Suleiman was just saying something. He said, I don't know, it resonated with me a lot. He said, it is so easy to take for granted people in your life who demand very little, but they do a lot for you for the fear of losing you.
Mm-hmm.
They do a lot
Mm-hmm.
for you for the fear of losing you, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a sibling, whether it's a parent. They do, maybe it's a business, maybe it's a friend, a dear friend. They do so much for you because they value you and they're attached to you and they don't want to lose you. So they'll keep doing things and you
Mm-hmm.
take it for granted and you lack basic gratitude.
Mm-hmm. And you just lose them. I think it's also important to remember like gratitude really helps us be more humble within ourselves. Because in the living in like this time, there's a lot of consumerism and like focus on yourself, but like gratitude allows you to expand to what other people are doing for you and how much they love you. And it always reminds you of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's blessings. And it's like you never forget that. And whenever you keep reminding yourself of that and you keep saying it, it just, I don't know, I always feel like it makes my life so much better whenever I
SubhanAllah.
on that.
Yeah, and SubhanAllah, so many studies on tying gratitude to well-being, lower stress levels, lower blood pressure, so many benefits. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us people of gratitude, people who are not only grateful to Him, but grateful to others. It's a virtuous cycle. More grateful you are to people, more in turn you're grateful to Allah. In fact, there's a narration, the most grateful of people to Allah are those who are the most grateful to people. It's a slightly different wording than the one I shared earlier. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of that. On that token, thank you, Sister Sana. I wanted to appreciate you for coming and taking your time, taking time out of your schedule and joining us. May Allah bless you. Thank you once again, everyone, for your comments and feedback and your all the thoughtful things that you were able to share. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept. Inshallah, till next time, this Thursday, I'll see you then and we'll finish off this hadith. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.